the Jon Anik and Kenny Florian podcast. Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
I fucking love them. I can't get enough of them.
Let's hear that Boston next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy, out cold. Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robots here. Oh my goodness.
Hyperbole.
They're a couple of absolutely self-involved bullshit artists.
Here are your hosts, Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
Well, quarantined in my master bedroom away from my children, there is no one I would rather capture to spend 60 minutes on video and audio with me than my man Ken Flo. It's Monday, June 8th, 2020, episode 253 of the Anik and Florian podcast. What's up, kid?
What's going on, dude? How was Vegas?
Vegas was good. I did not frequent any casinos, but it was good to be back out there, of course. Hotter than hell. You know, I live in Florida. I run outside in Florida, but that desert is a different beast right now. It really is. When you parlay the wind with the heat, my lungs were not cooperating, but it was really buttoned up. I mean, much more restrictive in terms of the hotel than in Jacksonville. Everybody had to be masked all the time, or you were getting a lashing. You know, you couldn't even go in the building without a credential that had a wristband that cleared that you had your temperature screen. So we felt pretty taken care of, and another show is in the can. How was it for you? I know you were watching most of the fights on Saturday night.
I was. I saw a few of the prelims, the whole main card, and it was good, man. It was good to hear you again.
Well, I appreciate that. We have a lot to get to today. Later in the show, we will have some thoughts from Ken Flo. We'll see if he thinks this one is going to stick or not. Conor McGregor's third retirement in the last 4 years. So on the way out, we will be sure to get some thoughts from Kenny on that. But in the nature of not burying the lead, let us start with the Lioness Amanda Nunes.
Headlines.
It's time for headlines.
I have some very urgent and important breaking news.
Headlines.
On the Jon Anik and Kenny Florian podcast.
So I oftentimes travel with Nina and Amanda because we live down here in South Florida. So really interesting to hear her thoughts after the fact. Ken Flo, I guess I'll start with the fact that the last thing she or the American Top Team, Dan Lambert, Mike Brown, would ever do is take an opponent lightly. Their focus Saturday night, or at least her focus, was to go 25 minutes, right? Not that she wouldn't have knocked her out if there was an obvious opportunity, but she really wanted to prove that she could go 25 minutes at 145 pounds where she feels better than bantamweight. I think her bantamweight days are over, and if this is the beginning of several title defenses at featherweight, I think she fought a near-perfect fight.
Well, it was smart. I mean, if you've seen Spencer fight before, you knew she was going to hang in there for as long as possible, once again showing her toughness. But as far as skill, unfortunately for Spencer and, frankly, everyone in that division, they're just not going to be able to keep up with someone like Amanda Nunes. I mean, there is no female who can throw a punch like Amanda Nunes. Period. I mean, when it comes to, maybe hitting a bag or whatever, but as far as a fight, a professional fight, when it comes down to it, if you need to hit a female in the face, Amanda Nunes just does it better than any other female out there. It's really impressive, the kind of power and speed that she's able to put together, her timing. I really thought there was such a disparity in skill by, the fourth round that they probably should have stopped the fight. Nunes really put just a lot of combinations on Spencer. She again, just hung in there. She was tough as nails, but I don't know. I think Amanda Nunes just showed that she's just at another level yet again. I don't think there's anyone out there that really can challenge her. I know you really shouldn't say that. You don't want to get that into the head of a fighter. And obviously ATT did a great job of keeping her focused for this one. But, man, Nunes is very good.
And from a legacy standpoint, and look what Henry Cejudo did, and then he chose to walk away. And, of course, there are a lot of bantamweight killers waiting for him. That is not Amanda Nunes' reality. And there really is nothing for her left to accomplish from a mixed martial arts standpoint. She's won 11 consecutive fights. She has won 8 consecutive UFC championship fights in any number of different ways. If you talk about Ronda Rousey and Miesha Tate and Holly Holm and Chris Cyborg, none of them lasted more than a round. Yeah, Pennington and Spencer and some of these others have extended her, for lack of a better way to put it. But she is the GOAT. There is not a distant second with respect to the great Valentina Shevchenko. And we could dissect this performance. I mean, I'll tell you from a judging standpoint, the way the scoring rules are written right now to encourage more liberal use of 10-8s where you don't have to largely dominate a round. Go read the rules. there was at least two 10-8s for me, if not three there, at least based on the language, Kenny, of the new scoring. So it was 50-45 and then 50-44 times two. I had fans coming at me saying, if you really read the rules, they scored at 50-40. They had 5 10-8s. Wow. And again, I encourage people to read the scoring, but she was as dominant as ever. I probably had it 50-43,
There's no doubt about it. Again, Nunes just looked like she was just in a completely different a level than Spencer. And again, Spencer's toughness is impressive, but again, there's just a huge skill disparity in that whole division, period. Yeah. She has, really run out of opponents at this point. I don't know if there's anyone out there that's going to make things interesting. And I think that's her biggest challenge at this point, is not only staying motivated for these other fighters, but just getting an opponent who's willing to get in there with her.
Megan Anderson has won 2 in a row. She's won 3 of 4. I know there isn't a healthy appetite for that fight, but she is 6 feet tall, and I do think it's an interesting matchup just because of that size. So I do think if she defends the featherweight title first quarter of 2021, most likely, I think if Megan Anderson can get another win or get another fight, ideally, right, that could produce a win, she could be next in theory. But I think Amanda's ready to go home and nest with her wife, Nina Nunes, and become mothers and maybe take the rest of the year off. I know Nina would like to return to fight in February, up a division at flyweight, so maybe Amanda would help her and then not even come back until April. Amanda was on crutches in a wheelchair, right? I mean, she is really banged up in that lower half. And again, you don't win 8 championship fights, Kenny, and go through 8 championship training camps without paying some sort of price. She looked like a prime Amanda Nunes, but it's not like she can win 8 more title fights without absorbing a whole lot of damage along the way.
She has proven herself already as an elite mixed martial artist. She has proven herself to be the greatest of all time when it comes to, the women's divisions. I don't see anyone breaking her record or doing what she has done for a very, very long time. So Nunes has separated herself from all the other great female fighters. And she certainly deserves that time off. And again, for her, she's already made a lot of money at this point. Nina obviously still interested in fighting, and she could do, some impressive things in her division as well. But with a child coming up and all those things, you got to believe that she's probably going to take a long time off.
I do think she would enjoy maybe a high-profile boxing match that could see her realize a big payday would be something she'd have an appetite for. And she'd be probably an underdog in that setting, which I think would be an interesting challenge for her because at least right now in MMA, I mean, Ian Parker said last week that Amanda should have been minus 1,100, and he was exactly right. So we congratulate Amanda Nunes, and we'll see what is next. We, of course, acknowledge the toughness of Felicia Spencer, but she was outmatched. And I know my man TJ DeSantis would have been very surprised years ago to have seen Felicia Spencer rise to a UFC title fight this quickly, having followed her on the Invicta FC circuit. So we congratulate her effort in defeat, and I do think she'll work her way back in what is obviously a division so thin that there aren't even rankings at UFC.com. All right, co-main event was Cody Garbrandt and Rafael Assunção, even if it wasn't the biggest bantamweight fight of the night. Ray Longo is going to be waiting in the wings here, so we'll table Aljo for a second, even though otherwise I would go to him here. Cody fucking Garbrandt with a knockout that is going to be on highlight reels for years to come. And say what you want about it, and Sean O'Malley and others will, in terms of the technique or lack thereof. Some people will suggest that he grabbed the fence and there was something illegal about the strike. When Anthony Showtime Pettis pushed his foot off of the fence, Ken Flo, right? As long as you're not interlocking the toes, there's nothing illegal about that as far as I know. Cody, I guess did interlock a finger for a second, almost as if he was like springing off the cage. I don't see anything illegal about it. Assunção was disappointed that he let his guard down a little bit, but that was a ferocious knockout, one of the most deadly I've ever seen cage side.
And in that instance, people need to use, common sense. What exactly was he gaining as an advantage by grabbing the fence? There was no takedown attempt. There was no, grappling going on. But anyway, I just think that's kind of ridiculous. But anyways, Cody doesn't need a lot of help when it comes to the speed and power department. He can produce that very well on his own. I think you kind of nailed it. And this is not to take away from Cody, because technically he's so good when he's making you miss. But the thing that stands out very clearly when you watch Cody Garbrandt fight is that he is a different kind of athlete. He really is. The way that he moves and his ability to read punches when he's trying to make you miss, right? When he gets emotional, he stands in the pocket, you're always throwing the dice. And we see so many mixed martial artists go and do that and be like, I want to brawl. I want to get in there. Okay, well, you might get knocked down in that process as well. Cody Garbrandt needs to go back and be that dude that he showed when he fought Dominic Cruz. Maybe the best performance that I've ever seen out of any UFC fighter.
Yeah.
And he just looked phenomenal out there. When he's out there, he's utilizing his footwork. He's analyzing, not just diving headfirst into exchange. That's when he really is at his best. And I hope this is a different change, because if it is, Cody Garbrandt will get that title back. I absolutely guarantee you, no matter who he faces.
You called him a different kind of athlete, and those are some seriously true words. And that's the rub, and I'm glad that you led with it. That's the rub when it comes to Cody No Love Garbrandt. Athletically, he is on a different level than most. A guy who, if he had different dimensions, maybe if he was as big as his brother Zach, would have been a professional athlete in a different sport. This kid played middle linebacker, the premium position in the state of Ohio at 135 pounds. You know, that shit doesn't happen by accident. And as far as this Mark Henry relationship is concerned, and by the way, Joe Rogan and Daniel Cormier at separate times on the broadcast both referred to Mark Henry as a genius, okay? Their words, not mine, but obviously we put him on a pedestal when it comes to striking coaches, and rightfully so. He's turned away a lot of elite athletes. This wasn't a byproduct, Kenny, of Cody reaching out to Mark Henry. Mark Henry recruited Cody over the years because he saw this athlete and saw this speed and felt like if he could work with this guy, it could be truly something special. Now, I'm not saying Garbrandt, I'm not the technical guy. I'm not saying he's totally out of the woods, that this is Garbrandt version 2.0 necessarily, but there was a lot of good in this performance, and he was able to punctuate it with a knockout that is certainly going to hold up as one of the better ones.
It was. And again, this isn't a Cody that couldn't have done this on his own. No disrespect to Mark Henry. I think what Mark Henry has brought to the table is discipline and the fact that he gets to utilize his footwork again. Hey, you use your footwork, man. That's what makes you special. That's what separates you. There's one thing that allows you to hide in the octagon and disappear, and it's footwork. And there's just no one in the game who really, in my opinion, truly understands that and gets fighters to really realize that. Everyone just thinks there's the target, I'm going to walk forward and just try to hit it. That's how most professional mixed martial artists approach the game. And Cody Garbrandt, again, is kind of brought back into that reality of utilizing your footwork, and Mark Henry is probably responsible for that. I think keeping him disciplined, keeping those footwork patterns, and not getting him into just doing the same thing, I think, is going to be important for Cody moving forward. But either way, man, it was great to see Cody get close to fulfilling his potential. That's how good I think he is. I still think there's so much more for Cody to show. The dude's a stud, and it was great to see it back. The UFC needs someone like Cody.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, he could sell tickets in Ohio and Pennsylvania and Los Angeles, and obviously has a style that can produce a knockout like that. And can I just be a fan for a second? Dude, I mean, that fucking knockout, right? Just sitting there and seeing a man separate a really durable man like that from consciousness. I mean, bro.
It's 135 pounds. Where do you see a dude be able to put a guy to sleep like that? Again, and we'll talk about Sean O'Malley and all that stuff, but it's just rare. It's a rare quality to actually have that kind of power, because even in Sean O'Malley's knockout, which was absolutely brilliant, he had hurt him twice. He had hurt Wineland twice to the body before that. So he was already kind of out and, had been hurt to the head before that as well. But one punch knockout power like Cody Garbrandt's, you just don't see it 135 pounds. He bowed out of the way, timed it perfectly, came upstairs, threw that punch from hell. And my goodness, again, Ascent, he's been knocked out, once maybe? I think it was the guy from Duke Rufus's, why can't I think of it? The southpaw there from Duke Rufus's camp. Anyway, Eric Koch, exactly. That was the only time you've ever seen him knocked out. And he's fought a lot of high-level guys, and that was kind of earlier in his career, I guess you could say. But you don't see a guy like Ascent knocked out cold like that too often. It's happened once in his career, and Garbrandt's just again a special fighter.
Let's talk about Sugar Sean O'Malley for a second, because obviously his head coach, Tim Welch, has a lot to prove before he's in a conversation maybe with a Trevor Whitman type. But I have said on our airwaves in the past, I really believe in this 1-2 punch with Tim Welch and Sugar Sean O'Malley, Tanquinho Mendez. You can't do much better than that in terms of your primary jiu-jitsu player that you're training with day in and day out. I believe they're doing the right things from a strength and conditioning standpoint. I said on our airwaves last week, if I could buy stock in any young fighter, O'Malley would be the guy. I don't think that people realize how good he is, whether they're focused on the marijuana or him saying things like he's the best striker in MMA right now. But there's more truth to that line than people want to realize. And because you're the expert, I would always defer to you. But I see a very special bantamweight. I see a future contender, if not world champion, every time I watch him now. And I do believe he's ready to take his shots at this division's elite right now.
It's a couple things, right? I will say that O'Malley continues to improve and impress, in my opinion. I also say I understand he doesn't have a manager right now, or hasn't had a manager for a little bit, but whoever is making those decisions of deciding who he's going to fight and when he's going to fight them deserves a lot of credit as well.
It's
It's him. Okay, well, he's a smart guy, and he knows exactly what he's doing. He's picking the right fights for where his skill level is at, where his experience is at, and that's just going to give him that much more momentum, that much more confidence, and that much more playing time to figure out exactly what he can and can't do in a mixed martial arts bout. And you're seeing improvement. I thought the way that he was moving, the relaxation to me is also impressive of how composed he is. He's not a guy who's super tense. He's relaxed when he punches. I thought his feints looked really sharp. And what separates him, to get a little bit nerdy here on his striking, it's one thing to feint. It's another thing to feint and be in a punching position to take advantage of it. That's why Wineland was so hesitant in coming forward. Those feints were really scary to him, because O'Malley was feinting him and then ready to strike if need be. And when he did, he made it work for him and made Wineland pay for coming in. Wineland, yes, he has been, dropping his hands. He's been doing it for years, but very few have been able to truly take advantage of it and not get hit like Sean O'Malley. So just lovely stuff there from Sean O'Malley.
And if you want to listen back to the Anik and Florian podcast archives, he was our featured guest back on 4/20, I believe it was, the 20th of April, if I'm not mistaken there. But if you go to O'Malley's YouTube channel, he did a video on Sunday morning, and he was going to stay in Las Vegas, which was not the initial plan, to talk to the UFC brass. So maybe there will be another quick turn for O'Malley, who already has 2 wins here in 2020. And don't lose sight of the fact that he had 2 years off. And developmentally, obviously, took advantage of that time. And I do believe, we'll see if he gets a new contract, and that's why he's in Vegas. I don't know. But I think as long as he is being paid the right money, he's going to command a top 15 opponent next, and wants one. So
I think so. Listen, you look at his striking, you look at his reach, that's always going to be a problem, I think, moving forward. And I'm sure he knows this. Sean just needs to continue to work on his wrestling and on his grappling. So when he gets to that elite 15, those guys who are really kind of trying to take him down and make him pay there, he's ready. And if he's able to do that and he's doing the work, he's going to be a tough guy to beat, man.
And again, you see him on the Quintet Ultra circuit too. I mean, a kid loves to grapple, That's a thing. I mean, that's where he really, I think, has the
He's a martial artist, man.
Yeah, man.
He really is, yeah.
All right, support for today's episode of the Anik and Florian podcast comes from Manscaped. Manscaped has the right tools to get the job done quickly, safely, and hygienically. And as Ken Flo knows, Father's Day is just around the corner. You might need a gift for your hairy dad, so make your dad proud this year and get him and yourself the Manscaped Perfect Package. So my dad, born 1951. I can't even imagine if he had a lawnmower 3.0 back in like the 1970s, how much that would have changed his life. Manscaped, the only men's brand dedicated to men's below-the-waist grooming, and this Perfect Package 3.0 kit comes with, among other things, that essential lawnmower 3.0, anti-chafing ball deodorant, water-resistant cordless body trimmer, of course, is the headliner, but there's a lot of other things in the package as well. The Crop Reviver refreshing spray and reduced chafing athletic boxer briefs as well. And if your dad doesn't have this stuff covered, good way to get it out of the can there for Father's Day. Help the guy out so he's using the best tools for the job. And I think for men and women alike, they'll appreciate this. Manscaped products, cruelty-free, paraben-free, dye-free, and vegan. So for our listeners, we want to get you started right to get 20% off and free shipping with the code AF. Go to manscaped.com today. That is 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code AF. Manscaped.com, code AF. It's dad bod season. All right, so Kenflo, before we get on out of here, Conor McGregor has announced his retirement, I believe, for the third time in the last 4 years. Some quotes courtesy of ESPN.com's Ariel Helwani here. They should have just kept the ball rolling. I mean, why are they pushing Khabib versus Gaethje back to September? You know what's going to happen in September. Something else is going to happen in September, and that's not going to happen. I laid out a plan and a method that was the right move, the right methods to go with, and they always want to balk at that and not make it happen or just drag it on. Whatever I say, they want to go against it to show some kind of power. They should have just done the fight, me and Justin, for the interim title, and just kept the ball rolling. And one final quote, Kenny. I had my goals, my plans, the season, right? You heard McGregor talk a lot about this fighting season in 2020. I had everything laid out. Obviously, the world has gone bleeding bonkers at the minute. There's fuck all happening at the minute. They want to throw me. This is the line. They want to throw me up and down weights and offer me stupid fights. I don't really give a fuck. I'm over it. So at least right now, Conor seems to want to fight. It seems like he was starting to maybe cut down to 55. Doesn't seem satisfied with the fights that are being offered. We've talked a lot about maybe some of the promotional challenges. You know, you're going to trot this guy out with no gate at the UFC Apex. You're going to take him to Fight Island with no fans. There's a lot of different parts to this. I'm just curious how this Conor McGregor news sort of registered on your plate over the weekend, if at all.
Listen, I think he's being pretty candid about this. I think he envisioned himself really working towards a title in the UFC's lightweight division. It seems like, he's probably not getting the fights that he wants. Obviously, I thought it made a lot of sense for him to fight Gaethje. But again, with this weird time, again, would the UFC sacrifice a fight with no crowd for a Gaethje-Conor fight right now? Doesn't make sense. Maybe, Conor for any fight right now. So I don't know. I think Conor, if he wants to fight, he wants to have a fight that's going to be a true challenge for him so he can go out and train hard. It looked like he was putting in the work and staying in shape and saying the right things. And I also feel like he has a lot of leverage right now in today's UFC environment. When you have Jon Jones, Henry Cejudo, and Masvidal saying that they're all going to retire, they all want to be released from the UFC contract. So it's an interesting time right now for not just these guys, but all the fighters. And I don't know. Do I believe that he's going to be retired at this point? No. Can he retire at this point? Yes, absolutely. But I think it for Conor, unfortunately, he's just going to have to wait for that right time after maybe Khabib and Gaethje to fight. And when things get back to normal again, God willing, we'll see him back in the octagon.
See, I just don't think he's satisfied when it comes to his MMA legacy. So when you say he can walk away, I think in many ways he can. Financially, of course he can. Sure. I know your back ultimately took the decision out of your hands. There's no career-ending injury right now for Conor McGregor, but I don't think he can really enjoy his retirement without building upon his mixed martial arts legacy. I do believe, and I've been wrong before, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I believe in his heart that he cares deeply about his MMA legacy and wants so badly, to his GOAT comments not all that long ago, wants to add to it so badly that I just don't believe at all that he's walking away for good.
I also feel like we haven't seen the best Conor just yet. I still think that as a martial artist and a guy who truly loves to learn the game, he has a lot more to show. He's still in his prime. It would be a shame to not see him fulfill that potential and to show, the other tricks that he most certainly has up his sleeve.
Before I let you go, Las Vegas is opening up. I couldn't even believe the extent to which it was opening up. Obviously here in South Florida, my county, Palm Beach County, not so great. Rises in cases, but for the most part, the state is starting to open up. Any update on Meraki BJJ, MerakiBJJ.com? Are you still sort of in a holding pattern, or has anything moved?
We're still in a holding pattern. We've gotten word that things are going to start to open up for gyms like ours in the next week or two. You kind of still have to go out and fill these documents out to kind of get approval from the county that you're a business that's going to be responsible and blah, blah, blah. It's good to see businesses open. I think it should have been done a little bit earlier, to be honest. As long as you're being responsible and taking the certain precautions, I think it's a travesty for a lot of these business owners. I thought in the beginning this was something to be feared. Absolutely. It's a real thing. But to put a lot of these business owners, especially those that have been putting their life towards these things, like these small mom and pop shops. These guys have been, working their ass off for 20, 25 years. And for them to, not be able to provide for their family, I think it's a hard thing to ask for a month, 2 months, 3 months now going on for this. So again, it's time for things to start opening up, and as long as people are responsible, I think it's the right choice. So hopefully we'll be up and running, and I know our students are really itchy to get back to it.
Right, and hopefully Buffer doesn't sue you for just saying it's time there, because that would only compound.
Oh, that's right.
problems,
Jeez,
right?
I didn't even realize that. There we go.
He's just gonna
He's
say
calling
it's
me
time?
right now. He's calling me right now. Buff, I'm sorry, dude.
You're just gonna say it's time, like out of the blue, as
right?
If, like,
I know.
You fucking
Oh my
say that
God.
shit.
I'm gonna have to hire all these lawyers now. Oh my God.
But we do wish you all the best, because, of course, my identical twin brother's a small business owner, and they have stayed open and been able to do so. But I really do feel for you guys, and I'd imagine when people come back, you do the temperature screening at the very least when they walk in the door. Yeah,
absolutely. We have all these new protocols that we're going to be following, and make sure people are safe. Yeah.
Gives me a great excuse to never go back to American Top Team West Palm Beach and train for the rest of my life. No, sorry.
Right. No, and it's the same thing, dude. I for me, it's like Florian Martial Arts Center, same exact thing. So every business, everything that I do has been limited by this. So it's been tough, but I'm not the only one.
Except for the Anik and Florian podcast.
That's
going
right.
fucking strong
Let's
as ever.
go.
And thanks to everybody, by the way, for listening, for subscribing on YouTube. You can go to Anik and Florian or AnikFlorianPodcast.com. If you want merchandise, the code for 10% off is AF, AnikFlorianPodcast.com. And we will be right back with you next week. More UFC selections, a recap of UFC Fight Night I versus Calvillo. Thank you to our guests today, Raymond Peter Longo, Ian Parker, our producers, TJ DeSantis and Cody Merrow. With that, for Ken Flo, I'm Jon Anik. Until next week, enjoy the fights. Don't text and drive. Yo fucking later.